welcome to day 2, Face Everything in Recovery Retreat. So today we have somebody who's going to be coming up, and she's going to be sharing with us how sponsorship plays a major role in her recovery, what she's seen. And Pat is a very seasoned sponsor. She's seasoned in this work of recovery. So please listen to her, take all the notes that you can, and get a damn sponsor. If you've been a sponsor, be a sponsor again while you're here. We have a tradition here at the retreat. We typically have more people getting sponsors and sponsees than many other events that CODA puts on. So please step up to your own recovery. And in the meantime, let's give a warm welcome to Pat.
Is he not a wonderful MC? Oh, my goodness. Wow. Donald, I don't know how we could do this without you and the entire team. You know, you, Skip, John, and everybody else that helps out. Mary, wow. It is a team effort. I have done stuff like this before, and it takes a lot of different people with a lot of different skills. What I'd like to do first is, would you join me? We're not going to do I'm going to do a moment of silence. I'm not going to do the serenity prayer at the end. I'm going to do an alternate. So if you'll just kind of help me out a little bit, I would appreciate that. So would everybody just kind of close your eyes and just take a moment of silence, and then we'll get started. Just for today, I want to work towards serenity, to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know that that one thing I can change is my attitude towards how I view life. It doesn't matter what they think. It does not matter what they think. It doesn't matter what they think. What matters is that I share from my heart today to the best of my ability. Thank you for letting me share. Okay, what I'm planning on doing today is I'm going to share my whole experience about sponsorship. What my fears were in getting a sponsor, what my fears were and my feelings were in relationship to becoming a sponsor, and how sponsorship has helped me grow. And then what I have learned about sponsorship and what the advice is that I share now with people when they ask me about sponsorship. When I first came into the program, I kept hearing was, keep coming back. It works if you work it, you know. Okay, that sounds really nice. You know. I also heard get a sponsor, work the steps, and read the literature. Well, I'll come back to meetings and I will get a sponsor and I will work. You know, I'll do that stuff, but I mean, I'll read the literature, I'll come to meetings, but get a sponsor? Heck, no, you know. I was so ignorant about sponsorship. What I thought sponsorship was and what it turned out to be was very, very different. Oh, so why did I need a sponsor? Well, when I first got in recovery, let me get the rest of it. This is what I thought my recovery was going to look like just by coming into recovery and going to meetings and reading literature. I could do it by myself. Now, for those who can't see and on the tape, what they're looking at is a line that goes, a curve that goes way up, you know, just within a few weeks of recovery. And I got this program. I can do this by myself, and now I can quit going to meetings. That's not what I found out. I didn't want anybody to know what a bad person I was. I didn't want anyone else to see my soul and to see my shameful, unspeakable thoughts. I hoped and believed that if I could just go to meetings, listen to members share, and read the literature, I would get better. So, what all that is behind that, obviously, is fear. I don't think I'm alone in this. I think a lot of people have fear. I was terrified. I was absolutely afraid. You know, my goodness, if I got a sponsor, and I came into recovery, what would that sponsor think? I came into recovery with a long history of difficult relationships. I don't think I'm the only one. When I got the cards back from you guys yesterday, here's several. Um, I'm embarrassed. I feel like I'm smart enough that I can do this program without the help of a sponsor. I don't need a sponsor. That was me. This one, basically, I'm smart enough. I can read the literature and I don't need anybody to help me. And that's what I kept thinking. I'm not going to read through all of those. Um, if I got a sponsor and she actually got to know me, then what would she really think? Oh my gosh, how really screwed up is she? And is she really going to talk about this again? Ha 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 ha. She thought, what? Uh, I knew that's what they'd be thinking about me because that's what I felt from childhood. I learned an awful lot. I was just loaded with fear. Again, your cards said the same thing mine did. I'm afraid of what they're going to think. I learned that sponsorship wasn't a requirement, it was a suggestion. But also, I learned that a lot of people who didn't have sponsorship only had a little bit of recovery. They didn't have the deep recovery that I was looking for. So, what did my recovery actually look like? I'm stubborn. I came into the program, I was here for 2 years, and you can see from looking at the slide, and those that can't see the slide, basically it's a graph and there's not much growth my first 2 years. Yes, there was a little bit of relief, but not a whole lot. Somebody finally said to me, are you not in enough pain yet that you're going to get a sponsor and start working these steps? Oh, I didn't want to hear that. I really didn't. What that comment helped me realize was that what I was trying to do was sponsor myself. And if you really think about it, my crazy brain cannot help my crazy brain get well. And I was a sick person trying to help a sick person. And that wasn't working for me. So I had to ask someone eventually to help me out. I was afraid. Who am I going to ask? The first person I asked was someone in our group. I wasn't getting any better. It just was not a good relationship. I couldn't say that to them because I was so afraid of what they would think. I didn't want to hurt her feelings. But I eventually realized I wasn't getting better. And this is my life. I only have one life. And I didn't want to wake up at 80 years old, well, whatever my mother's age was, when she was on her deathbed, and be in the same place that I was then. And she wasn't happy with her life. And I didn't want that. So I finally decided to change that person, that sponsor, and get another one. So why did I choose the particular person that I chose? Because there was proven success. I had seen this person sponsor other people and they made major improvements. They put their recovery first. They had years of recovery. There was no sexual attraction for me to this person. I was emotionally, that person was emotionally present for me. They were open minded. He was open minded. You're going to hear me say he, and I'll talk about that in a second. He would listen to me without interrupting and would listen with compassion and understanding without trying to rescue me or give me advice and tell me what to do. I came into this program untrusting of females because of my background. So, yes, my sponsor was male. But like I said, there was absolutely no sexual attraction to this individual. But this individual was so strong in their recovery. And I had seen this individual work with other people and was just amazed at the changes that I had seen. So my sponsor was wonderful, except there was one thing that my sponsor told me at the beginning. And he lovingly said, "Don't you dare try to help anybody else. You're too sick." uh, yeah, I had gone to school to get my degree in counseling. Oh, right. Does that tell you anything? We want to help other people. Us codependents are just great at that, And here's somebody telling me that I'm too sick to help anybody else. Okay, but I knew it on the inside. I knew that that was correct. So what did my recovery look like after I got my sponsor? And you can see a huge timeline. During this time, the graph, for those that can't see, is just going up. It's not a perfect straight line, but I was working my steps. I was beginning to understand that some of the things I was thinking, some of the premises that I was approaching life with were based on lies or based on inaccurate information or assumptions. I'm not the only one out there. I can do the same thing with the cards. There are a lot of people out there who finally got a sponsor, finally broke down, finally decided that enough pain is enough pain and I'm ready to do something different. After a while of working these steps, my sponsor said, and it took a while for this person to break through this thick shell that I have of denial, and it's their fault, of the blame. But once we started really working through those 12 steps, and I started seeing what was going on, and doing my fourth and fifth step, well, all these people kept talking about how scary it was. Once I did it, it was not as scary as I thought. In fact, every time I now sit down with a sponsee and they're doing their fifth step, I always ask them, "I want you to think about what you're feeling now." Then a few hours later, when we finish the fifth step, I always say, "How do you feel now?" And they felt like I did. Relief. I told somebody all of my crap. I told someone all of the shame of what I was thinking and what I wanted to do and all the stuff, and they still loved me. And I felt that love. That was huge. That was just huge for me. So eventually, my sponsor wanted me to now start working the steps. I mean, not working the steps, but to share this with other people. And you'll notice the timeline on here. It gets flat again. You notice my growth? So I came into the program, my growth was flat. I got a sponsor, started working the steps, and my growth in recovery starts going up. My sponsor says, "Now you need to start sponsoring people." And guess what? It got flat again. Why? Because of fear. Here we go again. It's that same fear. What am I going to do? What am I going to say? How am I, I'm not going to say this perfectly. I could read some cards out, same thing. There's some people out there who have worked their steps. They know they need to start sponsoring people. But oh my gosh, I may not say the right thing. What do I do if they come up with a topic that I don't understand? I have to know it all. I need to be perfect before I can start sponsoring somebody. And I learned that is not true. This program, it's a we program. We work together. Well, that's what, you're not alone. Even in sponsorship, learning how to be a sponsor, we're not alone. You can always talk to your sponsor. You can always develop a list of really strong recovery people that you can call. I had one sponsee one time. This was a person who told me, this was a male who told me that anytime a little child, a female child, sat on his lap, he got excited. I'm not going to go into details, but and that scared the beat turkey out of me. Oh my gosh, what have I got? A pedophile on my hand? Blah, 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 blah. I mean, my head just, here we go, and all that stuff. But I'm not alone. I am not alone. So I have a list of people that I can call, and that's what I did. I called another person who not only was in recovery, but was also a professional therapist. And we talked about how to handle this particular problem. And it turned out fine. It was just my fear that was running the program. So while you're here, I'm going to give you a system so that you can start developing a list of really strong people who have got a lot of recovery under their belt so that you can ask them questions. We'll talk about that in a minute. So, what did my recovery look like then after I started sponsoring people? It took off. In fact, my growth since I have started sponsoring people was more than the growth that I did when I first started doing my steps, and that was powerful. Every time I sponsor someone, I always tell them, and this is the truth, I'm sponsoring you because I'm very hedonistic. I'm sorry, I want to grow in this program. And the only way that I can grow in this program and continue to grow is if I sponsor people. The timeline when I didn't sponsor people was flat. When I started sponsoring people, it flat took off. No, sorry, no pun on words there. It really took off. Why? Because every time one of my sponsees calls me and is talking about something, in the back of my head, I'm going, okay, if you spot it, you got it. What's going on in your life right now that you need to use this same concept? Y'all have heard of teachers talking about if you want to learn something, teach it. To me, that's what the 12 step is all about. So, what have I learned in recovery? Recovery takes time. That is a picture of me. Most people don't even know that. Oh, that was not a good day. I wanted my recovery to be fast. I wanted to be able to walk up to that light switch and you could tell me, here's the solution to your problem, and we'll fix it in the next couple of weeks and everything will be fine. Now, why did I have that idea? In my time period, we had a program called MASH. Some of you may be too young for that. There was a character in there called Hawkeye, and Hawkeye had a complete mental breakdown, and a full recovery in 30 minutes. So why can't I do it in 2 weeks? You know, I mean, Jiminy Crickets, what's wrong with me? I finally realized, in fact, my husband teaches mathematics, and I finally realized that recovery is a lot like math. First, you have to learn your numbers. Then you have to learn how to add, then subtract, then multiply, then divide. You know, in other words, it's a process. I can't go from step one, to algebra. I can't go from step one, and this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to go from step one to step 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. We try to carry this message to others. That was where I didn't want to do all that middle stuff. I also came to realize that learning math with a good instructor is much easier and much faster than struggling with it for years. Can you imagine somebody giving me an algebra book and saying, now you need to understand this stuff? Most people go, ugh. But having a really good instructor makes a huge difference. Learning a new language, learning Spanish, I cannot do in a one course time period. It's going to take me more than one course. Learning recovery is like learning a new language. So I finally got the idea that it takes time and I needed a good sponsor. Just like in medicine, if you go to a doctor and you don't like that doctor, you can fire them. You can say, I want a second opinion. I can do the same thing with my recovery. This is my life. I've only got one life, and I don't want to continue to live it feeling broken on the inside, feeling shame, feeling embarrassment, feeling regret, feeling anger, feeling resentment, feeling fear all the time. But I wanted it to be gone 100%. Well, you learn that doesn't work too well. When my sponsor then started suggesting that it takes time, Um, I wanted to procrastinate. Um, so what was I waiting for? Here we go. I was waiting for my fairy godmother to bong me on the head and say, "Now you are well." I was full of fear. You need to start sponsoring people. I wanted to make sure I would be a good sponsor before I started sponsoring people. I wanted to make sure that I would not screw somebody up. I wanted to make sure that I would say the right thing at the right time. And bottom line, I was waiting until I had all the skills my sponsor had. Right. I came to realize again, like sponsoring, picking a sponsor, being a sponsor also takes time. I wasn't a really good sponsor the first time I sponsored somebody, but neither was Bill W., one of our founders of the 12-step program. He wasn't perfect the first time he did it. Just like before, having a seasoned sponsor to help me go through the steps, this time my sponsor could help me learn how to be a sponsor. So having my seasoned sponsor help me learn how to be a sponsor would help. That person doing that process helped not only my sponsee, but it also helped me because I was learning. So who's hurting if I don't sponsor people? The newcomers. Me and my recovery. And I'm sorry, I'm hedonistic. That's where I want to get better. I'm hurting my sponsors' recovery. My sponsees sometimes say, I don't want to call you because I don't want to bother you. It is really hard to explain to them that I want them to call me because every time they do, I'm working my program on me. I'm telling them this stuff, but I'm reiterating it to me and what's going on in my life right now. And who else am I hurting if I don't sponsor people? Our fellowship. This fellowship has saved my life. I need to help my fellowship also. What was suggested to me? If someone asked me to be their sponsor, I was afraid. And what was suggested that I say was, well, let me get back to you. Okay. And then what did I do? I need to say, can we meet tomorrow or the next day? So we can talk about this a little bit, or can we get coffee? And then what did I do? I got on the phone and said to my sponsor, somebody's asked me to sponsor them. I don't know what to do. So then my sponsor says, okay, let's take it. Here's what you do with step one. And that's what I'm doing with my sponsees now. When I say I want you to start sponsoring people, they do the same thing. I got a sponsee. I don't know what to do. Okay, let's talk. What do you say at the beginning? What do you do with that first coffee? How do you handle the first step and getting them started on the steps? So what do I do when there are problems with a sponsee? What do I do when the sponsee-sponsor relationship does not seem to work out well? Well, I go back to my list of mentors, the people that I know. If I may come up with some brainstorming ideas, but then I will turn to my list of good, healthy veterans, senior recovery people. And I'll call them and I'll say, this is my situation. I'm thinking about blah, 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 blah. I had one sponsee who would not do any of the homework assignments and just kept calling me and wanting to vent and vent and vent and vent. Okay, let's do the steps. No, I don't want to do that. I want to vent. Okay, let's do the steps. No, I want to vent. So basically what my sponsor helped me see there's a way to deal with that also in a healthy way, not the way I was taught. I was born and raised in a family that if they didn't do it right, you hit them upside the head and hit them hard, either physically or psychologically. You cut them down. You try to get them to change. But I'm learning how to have a healthy relationship because of sponsoring people also. I realized, again, I'm not alone. Get that list. This is a we program. We admitted we're powerless. We came to believe, y'all have heard this before, we made a decision. There is a ton of good literature on sponsorship. This piece is one of my favorites. I think I brought this one. It's really green. It's not black and white. This one has just got a ton of really good information. Yesterday when they kept saying, oh, we're going to talk about sponsorship tomorrow. I kept going, okay, we're not going to go over all of that. I need 2 days if we're if we're going to go over all of sponsorship, So there's tons of very good literature. This one is just a wonderful one. Sponsorship is about being willing to put myself in a position to receive. What I've learned by sponsoring people, if you want to learn something, read about it. If you want to understand something, write about it. If you want to master something, teach it. I want to master my serenity. I want to learn how to take my life when it gets crazy and turn it into something that's more positive. Now, do I do that 100% all the time? No, I'm human. I make mistakes. We've had a situation in my family. I got mad. I stayed mad for a long time, but talking to recovery people helped me pull it out. Using my tools of the program helped me pull it out. But sometimes it takes time. Again, our 12th step, having had a spiritual awakening, having an understanding of these steps, we try to carry this message to others and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Sponsorship gives me an opportunity to practice these principles in everything that I'm doing. So what have I learned? Every time I suggest a recovery step, I've already said this, or a concept or a philosophy, usually that's exactly what I need to hear at that time for myself. Sponsoring someone strengthens my recovery. I have given this philosophy of life, I have to give it away in order to keep it strong in me. And sponsoring a newcomer gives me the opportunity to practice yet again how to open myself up to another human being as we work this program together. That's what we are here to do, is to work together. Every time I work the steps with a sponsee, it helps me to recommit. Every time I suggest let go to a sponsee, it reminds me that I can do the same in my relationships. Every time I suggest one day at a time to a sponsee, I accept that it's okay to be where I am today and to trust the process. What I now share when I am asked about finding a sponsor. When someone asks me, I usually suggest, as Medeline talked about yesterday, go to a meeting, listen to what people say. Spend some time with that person if you're thinking about this individual. Ask them some questions. Now, what questions might you want to ask them? How long have you been in the program? Do you have a sponsor? Are you currently working the steps? And what was it like for you to work the steps? Get to know the individual a little bit. Is this person somebody I want to try developing a relationship and learning from? And would you tell me about your relationship with your sponsor? I don't want to have a sponsor who doesn't have a sponsor. I want somebody who has got a sponsor, works the steps, goes to meetings, and lives their recovery. We've already talked about the literature. There is another piece that's called sponsorship in CODA. It's a smaller piece. So in this one, it talks about the types of sponsorship. This one talks about the types of sponsorship. You could do a temporary sponsor. You can have a permanent sponsor. You can have somebody who talked about co-sponsorship. There's lots of information in the literature about that. What do we look for in a sponsors in here? What are the sponsee's responsibilities, and then sponsor rights. Sponsee's rights. I have a right to say, if my sponsee wants me to do something that is illegal or unhealthy to me, I have a right to say no. And there's some real good rights in here, and that's where it's listed. There's tons. I can't get all through that, and he's going to start telling me I don't have enough time, so I can't get through all of it. What doesn't a sponsor do? Well, we don't give advice. We don't rescue or fix. We don't give you harsh or shaming criticism. We don't use the relationship to his or her own inappropriate gain. for romantic, sexual, professional, or financial outcomes of any sort. So I have a right to say, this is just not working for me. And that's what I had to do with my first sponsor. This is just not working for me. I found somebody else that I'm going to ask to be my sponsor. So what doesn't a sponsor do? We don't act as a therapist. We don't share your confidences with other people. And if I had a sponsor, one of the cards was talking about having a sponsor that sponsor talked about what they had said confidentially to them in front of other people. And, I think that's when I would turn and just politely say, that's not, this relationship's not working for me. I've lost my trust. I didn't trust people when I came into this program. I need a sponsor I can trust to share my gut with and know that that sponsor will take care of me. So now what I share about when I'm asked about learning to be a sponsor. Again, we've talked about this. Get a list of people to call. Go back to the literature. Even there are places, Donald sent me this one. It's got a good list of questions. This piece that's over here, there's a pointer. This is from Northern California CODA. And they've just got a list of really good questions. So there's lots of literature online. These were other pieces that I liked. I told you, if I talked about sponsorship, we'd take days to get through some of this stuff. I ask you to fill out some cards. And in those cards, let me flip back over here. One of the cards, those that weren't here yesterday, one side of the card says, I do not have a sponsor. And I don't have a sponsor because, and I ask everybody to fill these out. We got 31 cards back. 26 people do not have a sponsor. And 8 of them have a sponsor, but they're already working on the steps. They're just starting to go down that list. So if you are one of these individuals that says, I do not have a sponsor, what's the biggest reason? Because you don't want to get, in other words, if you don't have a sponsor, do you want to get out of your pain? Do you want to have serenity? Do you want to feel comfortable in your own skin? If you do, and you don't have a sponsor, we want you to get one, even if it's a temporary one. I've got one sponsee in California. They don't have to be in your group. It can be done over long distance. My challenge to you is to talk to someone today about being a sponsor. Even maybe about being a temporary sponsor until you find one more permanent. If you want to do that, that's okay. But get a sponsor and start working the steps. I have not volunteered. That was the other question I had you on the other side of the card. There's one that says, I qualify to be a sponsor, which basically means I have worked my steps. I go to meetings. I read the literature. I have a sponsor, so I qualify to be a sponsor. We got 30 of those cards back. There were a lot of people in there who say, I have a sponsee, and I am willing to sponsor some other people. In other words, I'm not full up. I can only take 4 sponsees at a time, and that's really if I'm not doing anything else and I'm not working. If I'm working, I maybe can only take 2 or 3 newbies. Newbies take more time for me. Some people out there qualify to sponsor somebody, but they are afraid. Why? Same stuff I was. And some people out there have a lot of experience, but they may have too many sponsees right now, but they are willing to mentor a new person trying to learn how to sponsor. Not a newcomer to our program, but a person who is new to sponsoring someone else. So my challenge to those people who are working a program, have a sponsor, have worked their steps, and they need to move on to the next level, my challenge to you is to become available. My sponsor kept telling me, Pat, you are not going to grow until you start sponsoring people. And I'd go back and see him again. You're not going to grow if you started sponsoring anybody yet. Well, I can't walk up to somebody and say, you need a sponsor and I'm going to be your sponsor. You just don't do that. And he said, I don't care. You need to start sponsoring people. Figure it out. I was taught to share. Thank you. I was taught to share. So I went back to my group and I told them, I said, my sponsors told me I need to start sponsoring people. And I have no idea how to do that, but that I won't grow. The funny part was after that meeting was over, a woman walked up to me and asked me, would you be my sponsor? So if you're willing to sponsor somebody, what I want you to do, back up, over here on the sides, thank you. Over here on the sides, you're going to find name tags. Sorry, I'm going to be 70 years old this year. And when you walk up to me and I saw you last year, I'm not going to remember that your name was Bill or Mary or whatever. It helps me if you wear a name tag. Now, if you want to stay anonymous, put Popeye on there. I don't care. All I want is your first name. Okay. So you have name tags and there is one Sharpie, and don't steal my Sharpies, please. Just put your name on there. If you are a person who is willing to sponsor somebody, I want you to put 1 star on there. Okay, so you'll have a name tag. Where's my examples? With 1 star, and I've got one here. There's little bitty stars if you want to be quiet about it. And if you really need a sponsor, you can have great big stars. I don't care. Okay. So put a star on there. That lets everybody know you're willing to sponsor somebody. If you checked yes on this list that you have sponsored people and you would be willing to serve as a sponsor, what I want you to do is I want you to put 2 stars on there. Okay? So I am a person who is willing to serve as a mentor. Let's say, for example, Donald is new at sponsoring somebody and he's scared to death, and Medaline says, I've sponsored lots of people. If you have any questions, call me. And that's what she's saying with 2 stars. Now, some of our 2-starred people who are willing to, they may be at a point where they can sponsor other people. So I want them to they could put 3 stars on there. In other words, I'm willing to be a mentor. And right now, I don't have any newbies, and I'm okay. I can sponsor some people too. So if you see somebody with 3 stars, I think I even have an example of that. I don't care how you put the stars on there. You can put the stars on top of each other. This one has 2 stars on top of each other and a star down in the corner. That means I am available to sponsor somebody, and I'm available to be a mentor. Okay? So I'd like for you to do that during the next break. And if you would, please wear these for the rest of the time period. We'll leave these out. Once we get the flood over with, I'll put them back on the resource table. So if yours loses sticky, please go get another one. To have, we'll make one. How's that? Okay. 1 star, I'm willing to sponsor. 2 stars, I'm willing to mentor. 3 is just a combination of both those things. No one is a perfect sponsee. No one is a perfect sponsor. It's about progress, not perfection, that counts. Thank you for being a great audience.